Osiris.
We're mass communicating. Mass communicating. Mass communicating.
Welcome back to Touchdowns All Day. I'm your host, Max Dawson. Happy Labor Day, folks. But on Touchdowns All Day, we take no days off. Whether it's in the gym or for the podcast, we are hard at work, always bringing you the freshest, most up-to-date content about the Disco Biscuits and what could be more of the moment than the band's newest song, Country Royale, debuted this last weekend at Thalia Hall in Chicago. A monster version of a song that I have been very excited for the band to bring to the stage since Joey started talking about it. And so I thought, before we get to Colorado, before we do another thing, we're going to drop everything on our agenda and we are going to dedicate an entire episode to Country Royale. And so I am joined by two of that song's authors, two of the four. And that is, of course, our friend Joey Friedman.
Hey, Max, how's it going? Hi, Aaron. Good to see you. Love the Plan of Attack t-shirt.
And, of course, Aron Magner.
Oh, thank you. I wore it specifically for this, because we will get you where you want to go.
We sure will, especially you and me, baby.
We usually have done these song deep dive episodes with BARBER. And, of course, BARBER was deeply involved in the creation of Country Royale, as was Mark. But Aron and Joey, this was one of those songs that I think that you described before. There are those nights when John has some kind of engagement in the evening. He leaves you guys at his house and it's like the kids are playing in the lab with all the equipment while dad is away. And this is when you guys sometimes cook up some of the wildest stuff. I think Spaga's Last Stand falls into this category as well.
That's correct. This is two-pronged. Number one, when Daddy Barber leaves, right, it enables, there's one less variable, there's one less, opinion, as respected of an opinion as it is, it's just like, I can move with my keyboard mentality and not have to, I only have to worry about Joey trying to translate things with a non-musical education when he's trying to relay something to me. But the other part about it, I know how annoyed
you get when you have to do that.
Oh my God, so annoyed. I love you, buddy. The other part about it is that John does such an amazing job as a producer, and he's grown so much as a producer just in the last 2 years alone, right? And therefore, he takes the majority of what we refer to as driving. He's in the driver's seat. He's the one that's controlling the, computer and everything like that. It's his computer in his house. He knows where everything is, and he's gotten damn good at it, right? So frequently, John is doing the driving, and there's other activities and brainstorms and writing and stuff like that is going on in the background, behind him when he's at the computer. But when Daddy needs to go to it's weird calling John Daddy. When John needs to go to a wedding or whatever and leaves the kids at home, we move at a slightly slower pace because I'm not as, dexterous at the computer as he is. And the two of us also kind of feel like we have something to prove by the time that he gets back. Like we do actually want to make him proud, in this weird sort of approval way, right? I mean, we're all in this together. We're just trying to create art, but we want to demonstrate that we're not just, blowing our time around when we're trying to get a song done. And we felt pretty proud of ourselves in the couple of situations where it's he had to do something else, and we just launched into it, and we came up with something that, we're both proud of.
Just to give a little teaser out there, Spaga's Last Stand was very much in this vein. This song, Country Royale, started and got over the finish line in this vein. And maybe even something new that nobody's heard yet is the product of a couple nights with Magner and I that you might hear in the coming weeks. So I really enjoy the time that Aron and I have spent together creating music. We bicker like two little brothers, but we have a lot of fun, and the results have been very good.
When did the process that ultimately produced Country Royale start?
So I do not know. John made a loop. John made a series of loops that he had sent me at some point in late 2023. I don't remember the exact date, but I started listening to them. I even did a little bit of writing over some of them, and none of those songs really became anything, but some of the lines from some of those got into other songs that we wrote. But this was a situation where it was after New Year's. We had just debuted Doorbell, Firewall Exchange, Dino Baby. We had not yet written No Recollection. And we just kind of had a night. And so the night started with Aron and I listening to the loops. And then I think Aron really liked the vibe of this one called Louder Than Noise. And then we started working on the music. And Mark might have even stopped by. He might have been there for a little bit as well. But we kind of just sat there. John, I forget what he was out doing, but he wasn't there. Aron was at the computer. And he kind of took this loop that John started and turned it into sort of what would ultimately become Country Royale musically. But we didn't have any lyrics yet. And then John would come home later that night and we would work on it a little bit more. And work, kind of fleshed out the music a little more, and the song was going in a bit of a different direction than it ended up in. But that's ultimately when it started. That first week of January, the same week we wrote No Recollection.
Okay. Why don't we start out by listening to that loop, Louder Than Noise, that you referred to?
We definitely used the drums from this, because that was a bane of our existence for a while, having to manipulate that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't sound like, I don't know if you would just heard this, you would be able to tie this to the song. That main lick is not there, but it kind of has that underlying beat is really what connects this to the song.
Yeah, I mean, drums are definitely one of my Achilles heels of writing and production. So, having like drums in so that I don't have to, write a groove is kind of part of my workflow, which is why it was nice when I heard that and I was like, let's do something a little rocky. We've been, doing something in this electronic world for a little bit. And the demo, which I'm assuming we'll eventually get to, was I think more electronic-y than where it eventually ended up, at least for its debut performance. And who knows where it's going to go from here. But yeah, it was interesting that the song kind of sat on the back shelf. There was more important things we were trying to get in at the time. So it was really nice to be able to kind of sit on it, not put any pressure, and then potentially one of the reasons why it was such a standout debut, because we had kind of spent the time to internalize the song a little bit, as opposed to, getting really excited that we just wrote something and wanting to, debut it the next night or something.
What is it about this loop in particular, Joey, that drew you to it from however many John had shared with you for potentially writing to?
I think Aron picked this one. I think there were a couple other ones that I liked probably better, that I actually wrote some stuff over. And this was not one of the ones that I chose. But then Aron, probably the drums or whatever, was like, like I've said this before, we don't need a whole lot to kind of get started in a certain direction. And in this case, it was probably the drums. It was probably Aron wanted the drums and we wanted to go and he liked it as a jump off point, and we just started working on it. And it may have, it could have ultimately not gone anywhere, but we did stick to it over the coming months. And so it ended up becoming this great song. But I don't think I wouldn't mind taking a look at some of the other loops that were in that sort of sample of collection, or what you would call it, because there was some really catchy stuff in there. But yeah, I think Aron liked the drums, and we said, let's start. I said, great, let's go. I mean, I don't have a whole lot to say in stuff like that because I don't have any skills in the actual making of the music. So if something's going to stick out to those guys and they're going to say, let's work on this, I'll usually just support that decision.
Yeah, there's also something to be said. Like, I think the easiest part of writing a song is potentially that, like, very beginning, right? When you start putting stuff in and layering it and it begins to take a form, and then you kind of get into that form, and there's this terminology of demo love, and you're listening to it on loop. Basically, you're creating yet another loop as you start adding all of these elements, and then that kind of just gets like stuck in your head as the definitive version of the song, even though so obviously it is not going to end up being the definitive version of the song. But you kind of can't see the clearing yet through the trees. You're just stuck in the middle of the forest of this like loop that you've been working on for 12 hours, and that's the only thing in your head. And so you kind of need the time in order to get away from that loop and let the stain of that loop kind of dissipate from your head, so that more items can kind of come to you. Obviously, the lyrics, Joey were your placeholder lyrics in after a night of writing, the King and the Queen one and the storyline and everything like that? Was all that beginning to come into focus for you, Joey?
Yeah, so we started writing, and I don't think I was even really writing lyrics at that point. I think I was just kind of hanging out with you and giving you feedback. Yeah. And then when
annoying feedback.
Yes. All right, a little context for everybody at home.
What did I start?
No. I know very little about music theory. I have a deep sense of the music, I feel like, and
the Rick Rubin of the jam band scene.
Yes, exactly. So I have to figure out how to communicate what I think to these guys. And Aron, has slightly less patience than John does with my communication style. What do you mean? Tell me what you mean. So that's a lot of our ongoing bickering is kind of around that, and to Aron's credit, I am kind of like telling him what to do, but I don't know how to tell him what to do. Yes. So he has to then he tries to do what he thinks I said, and I'm like, no, that's not what I mean, and he's like, well, what do you mean? We get there eventually.
I can relate. It is a particular curse to feel extremely passionately invested in music, but to be absolutely ignorant to any of the terminology that the people who make it use.
To Joey's credit, Joey has picked up a lot on our terminology, has picked up a lot on, a lot of the musical terms that we, throw around to try and express what we're trying to do backstage. And Joey has definitely picked up that verbiage and is able to communicate with us certainly more effectively than he has. And it is another language, right? So, but you can speak that language without knowing all the technicalities of D minor and, up of half step or whatever, right? Like, yes. Joey understands what the visceral feeling is of when you modulate something up a half step, or when you cut something in halftime, or when you speed something, whatever it is, he's picking up on all these things. When you sit on the tonic, that was like a really big one when Joey was like, oh, I get that, when like you take away all the chord changes and then you just sit on a tonic, which is a big move for us in order to make a left turn basically when we're stuck in a set of chord progressions. So Joey is definitely coming to our level in order to communicate with the four of us for sure.
Thank you for that acknowledgement, Aron. I appreciate that. But so when John got back and he kind of sat back down at the computer, and Aron and John were then working on the music together, that's when I kind of started writing, and I had this idea, which sort of was driving my lyrics that night. And I really, really liked this idea, and Aron and John didn't. And it was this concept of this like guy who meets this sort of like the concept was sort of like, it was kind of like a Pretty Woman concept, where it's like this guy meets this sort of like, I don't know if she was a prostitute or if she was just sort of like a lower class or something, but they were people that normally wouldn't have met. Right. And he falls in love with her, and he wants to take her out of her current situation and give her some life that she had always dreamed of, or at least he thought that she had always dreamed of. And the hook was, come with me and we can be the king and queen of New Jersey, which is sang over the same melody as we could be free, unlock the city if you give me the key. And all the lyrics were kind of like in this sort of vein of like how they meet, and then and that was the hook. And I've also talked about how I get made fun of a lot in these writing sessions, and this night was one of those nights where I just heard this song and I was so into it, and John was like, I am not singing that. I'm not going to do it. And so Aron, I think that about covers that sort of session, so to speak. I think we ended the night. I have a version of you, and it actually says, we come with me and we can be the king and queen of the country. I think that was sort of like a short-term compromise instead of New Jersey. And I think we ended up cutting that, and that would have been that was in January. And I don't think that version was the last official sort of version until we ultimately came back to it at the end of April.
Okay. I've got in front of me Garden State Royalty. I've got a Novox, and I've got, I think, the version with your vocals, Joey. Which of those should we share to give people an idea of where you were after that first little burst of creativity?
Just do the Novox. The Novox, I think, is a good version. They can just keep the New Jersey lyrics, and
you don't want people to hear you singing those lyrics.
That's pretty much from the loop right there. This might be the loop. No, this is it. So I guess we started it there with that underlying loop.
Right, because we needed a guitar, probably. Now, I do recall being very trepidatious bringing those chords in, because it's a very common chord progression. It's a common chord progression within Biscuit songs, within Biscuit jams, and if you have this blank slate to write a song, I'm kind of always tempted to do something that hasn't been done before. And I wrestled with that for a while with this song. It was also in a really weird key. It was like in E flat, and like this song just is one of those songs. It's like, why is in the world is this song in E flat and not in a more open string guitar key, an E or an A or a D or a B? And B is what we eventually settled on. But that was kind of also like one of those like, what the hell is going on with this song? And it's, now that we're across the finish line on the song, and the band is super psyched on it and the fan base is super psyched on it, it kind of makes me think about Keep It Simple, Stupid, or something like that, where it's like, every song doesn't have to be an opportunity to launch into something completely new and different. I think it, certainly can be if that's what you want. But, it feels really good to have a song that is easy to play, that is within our wheelhouse, that is more rockin' than hardcore, like, pounding electronic, where it's such a lyrically driven song. It doesn't really matter that much what's going on the music side, because this is one of those like really heavy, follow the story, and you get excited every time the chorus comes, and the verse 1 translates into verse 4 as a natural progression of the storyline. But yeah, it's nice to have one of these types of songs in our arsenal right now. One of those, like, we can play it in 3 minutes and 20 seconds if we want, or we could extend it into, a big set moment.
Well, I want to go back to something you said about it kind of being reminiscent of other things that you commonly do. I think you hit on a quality that I noticed, which was, this is the sort of song that the second or third time through the chorus, you can sing it as if you've been hearing this song for 20 years. It has a kind of familiarity to it. Part of it might be the lyrical structure, that it is a more kind of straightforward, story-based set of lyrics with a very, like, just solidly familiar refrain. We can be free. Like, that's, this isn't the first song to use that turn of a phrase, but it's a turn of the phrase that like just immediately gets people's attention. There's other aspects about the backing track as well. The keyboard lines, Aron, that you created. When I was listening to the stream of the Thalia Hall show, when you guys were heading into it, you started cueing the song first, and we'll listen to that version at the end of the episode. You started cueing the song by playing the keyboard line, and I was like, oh, is Aron teasing a New Order song or something like that? It sounded like such a familiar early 80s synth pop new wave song, that I was kind of embarrassed when you started playing the song, and I was like, oh, of course they're playing Country Royale. But it just has a sort of, you've heard this song all of your life, even though this is the first time you're hearing it, element to it.
Yeah, and I mean, what I particularly like about that line is the way that it interacts with the line that John plays, right? So John is on, right? And then the synth line is right, and they work really well together. I think probably the next stage is to figure out how to bring those in at the right time. Right now, aside from me teasing it on the way in, just to kind of focus us a little bit that this is where we're going as a band. We'd never played the song live, we'd never jammed into it, so that was kind of like, hey, if anybody needs to get your bearings, this is kind of going to be where the area we're going to be hanging out. Now you hear one of the lines of the song, and everybody else can like sing their lines in their heads, even though that might not be what they were playing at that moment, but that's certainly where they're going next. And so, yeah, I think that the two lines, the guitar line and the synth line, will have to figure out where they play together, whether one should come in first and then have the other either replace it or play along with it, whether it's going to be one of those things where, one comes in before the first verse and one comes in before the second verse, or these are the minutia that you kind of play around with once you really get to dig into the flow of the song. And I think that we as a band and as, you know, writers, we do a really good job kind of triaging what has to come next for the benefit of the song. And I really like that about us. You know, it's like, and potentially one of the reasons that Country Royale was on the shelf for, you know, so many months was simply because in a triage situation, we had other songs that needed to go in first.
I know that in the past, when you guys worked on Spaga's Last Stand, for example, you deliberately were using Harold Faltermeyer as a point of reference. Anything here that was orienting you? Because when I listen to this song, I hear Howard Jones, I hear Thomas Dolby, specifically with regards to the keyboard section, the synth section.
So what I still wrestle with this song is, you know, how much to lean towards the synth versus how much to lean towards the rock, right? And that responsibility falls a lot in my world. You know, like John, Mark, and Alan are playing, you know, guitar, bass, and drums, but I have the choice of whether to, you know, play piano, and I could be, you know, whatever, any rock piano player or organ, and then where I can go to my synths, which is more of my identity, and I could, you know, change the entire environment of the song with that. I think as of right now that there's a really nice hybrid of those two things, the, you know, string line at the beginning, but then it really goes full rock. I think in the verses, if there was synth stuff in the verses, it would probably detract from the vocals, but, you know, these are things I'm certainly open to experimenting with. You know, for a long time in the last few months, we were talking about how this, you know, really needs to lean towards a country song, or there are country artists we could bring in as a collab. You know, all these are fantastic ideas. And then before we played it in Chicago the other day, I said to John, I kind of started changing my mindset and thinking about this more of a Rolling Stones song than a country song. You know, so even like the piano work that I'm doing has, like, you know, Chuck Leavell fingerprints all over it. You know, there's even a Nicky Hopkins who's, you know, played piano in sessions with the Rolling Stones. There's like a Let's Spend the Night Together type of, like, I'm just like experimenting stylistically, not quoting songs, but just stylistically what type of, you know, piano could work here. And, you know, if I can't figure that out and want to lean more synthy as we get to experiment with this song on the rest of summer and fall tour, you know, then I'll try that too. But for now, that's where my head is at, that this is a Rolling Stone song.
Gotcha. I've heard people also compare it to Heroes by David Bowie, especially the synth part, that there is and I think also the We Can Be Free, that section has a lot in common with the chorus from Heroes.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good analogy. There's also a lot of, like, you know, this hybrid that we're talking about has some Cars DNA in it, right?
Yes.
There's like a synth driven, but it's a rock song, really.
Yeah. And it's interesting because you could have immediately started taking this in a real kind of stereotypically country direction with finger picking guitars and banjos and strictly acoustic instruments. But that wouldn't be the Disco Biscuits. You're going to have a country song and it's still going to have that transfusion element to it.
Well, it also wasn't a country song at this point, right? Like it was the song that we heard. We weren't really talking about it being a country song until really later that night, you know, after we were working on the New Jersey song, and then we kind of tabled it and went and everybody kind of went to bed, and I couldn't sleep. And I was, and I've written quite a few lyrics in bed in John's guest room during these sessions, because I'm usually kind of going when everybody else is tired. And that is really when I sort of came up with which is now the first verse, you know, and, you know, the one man show, I didn't, there's now a very clear story in this song, and that story is inspired by a real event. But that wasn't my idea yet, really. It was, I just kind of had this idea of a kind of a country Disco Biscuit song, but I wanted it to be country lyrics, but I wanted it to have that core element of the Disco Biscuits. I think the way I described it to you in the text was, a country techno anthem banger or something like that is what I always wanted it to be. So that night I write what is ultimately now the first verse or a version of that. And I was very excited about it. I mean, I sent you a text message at like 5 a.m. I said, Andrea, like a text message at like 5 a.m. I was like, I think I sent myself an email. I was like, this is the moment that I thought of this idea, and then I woke up.
I got that text in front of me, Joey. You sent it to me and Steve. It says, Barber doesn't even know it yet, but I'm in bed and I think I just wrote what could be the biggest thing that ever happens to this band.
Well, we definitely have these fantasies of hitting the country charts with this song. Like the first radio hit that the Disco Biscuits ever had is now on the country charts. Like, of course, that would be what happens here with this.
But so ultimately, what happened was I woke up the next morning and I was so excited and I couldn't think about it. And with John, especially, timing is kind of everything. With the band in general, timing is everything. And like, you got to approach things at the right time. And I did not. It was like he hadn't even had coffee yet. And I'm like, oh my God, you wouldn't believe what I thought of. It's this country song and here's how it goes. And oh my God. And he was like, I can't with this right now. We got to go to the gym. We got to do yoga. I got to take River to school. I was like, I blew it. I blew the country song. We're never going to make this song. And ultimately we didn't work on it again. I blew it. And I even sent you a text. I was like, I blew it. I sent Andrea a text. I blew it. I completely blew my shot. And then, we worked on other stuff for the rest of the week. And ultimately, that led to sort of all through winter tour, me having to what's the word I'm looking for? Politic or what's the word that starts with an A that you do in politics?
Lobby?
Lobby, or there's another word I'm looking for that I can't think of. But yeah, I had to lobby. I'd pull Magner in a corner and be like, let's talk about this country song. And I would sing him the lyrics. And I pull Barber.
God, you did that in Tahoe. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yes,
I got it. You you cornered me in the back area. There was a super nice backstage and you had to go through this dark, dank hallway in order to get to the bathroom. And you cornered me in that dark, dank hallway to sing me the placeholder lyrics that you had that you were very excited about.
Yes. Well, I mean, inappropriately, the song ends up having Tahoe as one of the primary locations in it. So it was that chance accosting in the bathroom or the
locked me up in Tahoe really refers to me locking Magner in that hallway and forcing him to listen to me sing to him. But yeah,
right, so before we move on though, I want to play this other one. It's the same loop or the same instrumental track as before, but I think this might have some early lyrics in it, Joey.
Sounds just like the last demo.
Yeah, there you can hear the little bit of the lyrics over there, Magner. You probably can't hear it because you're deaf.
I'm shocked that Barber didn't immediately drop everything that he had going on and dedicate himself fully to that at that point.
Or that I wanted to get out of that trapped, bathroom corridor.
Well, that was.
But you've got right there that the kernel of "We Could Be Free," which ends up being the thing that ties it all together and that turns this into the anthemic sing-along that it becomes. So, Joey, one thing I know is that you live in a household where there's a lot of country music played. Your partner, Dre, is a huge fan of contemporary country music. To what extent is that being part of your ambient musical environment and influence on where you started to take this song when you moved from Garden State royalty to country Royale?
Dre plays a lot of country music. I am not a huge country music fan, but every now and then we'll have a car ride and she'll get her way and she'll play quite a bit of country music. I kind of, for me, it wasn't so much about again, I wanted it to be a Disco Biscuits song, but I like outlaw country lyrics. I think, like Johnny Cash and even some of the Grateful Dead songs, I think are cool that sort of tells us. I like outlaw stories, Billy the Kid, I just like those types of stories. And that is what really sort of pushed me in this direction, the opportunity to kind of tell a story in that sort of way, with elements of country, but then also centered in sort of a Disco Biscuits envelope is what kind of really excited me about it. And I also thought that it would be cool for Dre if we wrote a country song and that she would really like it. So I was excited about that aspect of it. But yeah, she listens to a lot of country. She plays a lot of country at home and in the car. But I think for me, more than anything, it was the opportunity to write outlaw country lyrics.
So when did you start those lyrics? When you really locked in on this theme of the guy locked up in Tahoe and the story, which, if I understand correctly, was inspired by some recent events in the news?
Yeah, well, it's not specifically about a story in the news. It's sort of its own story, but there's this concept that happens quite a bit that I'm sort of fascinated by. And it's this idea that these prisoners, these horrible prisoners meet these female security guards, and they sort of manipulate these female security guards into falling in love with them. And these female security guards have and I don't know, I mean, I'm sure maybe it's happened to male security guards, but the stories that I'm familiar with, it's a male prisoner and a female security guard. And they've got husbands at home. They have kids at home. They've been working at the prison for 30 years. And this scumbag convinces them to basically throw their entire lives away to help them escape from jail. Ultimately, they always get arrested or killed 3 or 4 days later, and then the security guard has to go to jail for however long, and their lives are ruined. And that idea I always found quite fascinating. So at some point, and I don't remember exactly when, I sort of thought that idea would fit the concept of this song really well. This guy who's sort of a lifelong criminal, and the song kind of is it starts with a little, he gets a little bit in trouble, and then that ultimately escalates to where he's killed a couple people and stolen a car and got into a head-on collision, which ultimately leads him to spend his life in prison. And he's basically telling this. He's got a guitar in jail and he's basically singing this to the security guard, with the final verse being that, the hard sell, the pitch. Hey, that we can escape this life, your horrible life with your husband, your monotony, and my life in prison, and we can go live together in Mexico. If only you would, help me get out. And the idea is that the slang name for whatever jail they're in, they call the city. And that's sort of the idea behind that. And so I don't know exactly when I thought to apply that concept to these lyrics, but sometime over fall or over winter tour. And I was writing stuff throughout the spring. And then I think we got around to talking about the song again. before Dallas, backstage. Because again, I was bringing it up a lot. I was kind of being pushy because I just wanted to keep it on people's radar. And John actually had some really good thoughts about the song. That what I thought was the chorus was ultimately became the first verse. And then once I kind of had that locked in, I was able to write some more verses. And once we decided to actually write the song together, it happened pretty quickly, right? I mean, I don't think we actually spent a long time on it. We kind of had the music already that we made in January. By this point, had a bunch of lyrics that I just needed to kind of get their feedback on and shape into what the lyrics would become. And then there it was, at least the first version of the demo. Didn't
we have like a secondary night that kind of like where it all congealed together wherever we were in the process of the song?
Yeah, I think what we did was we made a version of it kind of quickly. I think in our April session when we wrote maybe the chorus to In the End We Have Forever. And then what happened was the next week, the band actually played a couple versions of In the End We Have Forever in the studio, and they played a couple versions of this. And then what we did, you and I, John went out to the concert, that guitar player that he wanted to see, and
Al Di Meola.
Yeah, Al Di Meola. And when he did that, you and I took the recording of the live playing that Mark, you, and John played over, I think, a Splice AI drum track because Alan was in Colorado, and then we took those sections and that's when we got the guitar in, and that's when we got Mark's bass in, and that's when we got some of your keys.
So we did like a hybrid demo.
Yeah, that's
right. Live and demo stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got something here that says country. Royal Country Hook, which I think might predate that. So let's have a quick listen to this before we get into those early demos and studio sessions.
Locked up in Tahoe, I got booked on a one-man show and paid my bail with a melody. I made a couple bad decisions and spent a couple nights in prison, but we could be free in Carson City if you give me the key.
Amazing. Yeah. So Carson City in the place of the city, which, as you explained, is within the story world, the slang name for the prison that the narrator is incarcerated in. Where did Carson City, Reno, all this, was this really just coming out of our trip up to Crystal Bay over the winter?
Yeah, well, I liked the rhyme scheme, and so I was thinking about cities. When I was thinking of that line, I thought it had to be a line that said I was a Kansas City, Carson City. I was looking at names of cities that had the word city in it because I thought that city fit the rhyme scheme really well. And I think originally it was Reno, locked up in Reno, but I thought and then when I started singing it, I thought it was too similar to Tripped Up in Chino, which I think is Friend of the Debo. So and the band was playing in Tahoe. So I flipped it to Tahoe, because then I thought it was enough. It didn't sound similar to it. And then Reno is right by Tahoe. So I thought that, and Carson City is the county, I think, where Reno and Tahoe is in. So I kind of, it all worked out well that the story took place in this general area. It's not that far from Mexico either. It's kind of there. So I the band, I'm sure that the fact that the band was playing in Tahoe led me to that. I knew that Carson City was close to there. And then Carson City became the city. But yeah, it was, I don't know that it was like one specific thing other than like, I was trying to make it work, thinking of different things. When I realized that Carson City was right by Tahoe and Reno, I was like, oh, Carson City's perfect. But then I think John actually liked the city better than Carson City. And I do too at this point. And now it fits the story and everything. But that was kind of, I think originally it was locked up in Reno. And then I flipped it around and made it locked up in Tahoe and then brought Reno back with the casino.
Well, let's have a listen to that first demo that I heard. This is, I think, from, as Joey mentioned, that period in April, very creative and prolific period where you guys knocked out this. In the end, we have Forever, Mark's new song. There was a lot happening. I was able to stop by the studio, so I'll also play a little audio from a little video I recorded on my phone of you guys. This is something I've already posted on the Touchdowns All Day Instagram, but it's great to see you all working things out to the track. So I'll play the track first.
There we go. Now it sounds like Country Royale. No chorus after the first verse.
What a great demo. That's really good.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's still the one before Aron and I got our hands on it. Like the jam section came out of that. I think the layout changed a little bit of that, but that was a good start. I mean, that was good demo because one, we made it very fast, right? I mean, it still has my box on there, which we've talked about me singing in the studio. And sometimes, John's just not worried about that because he knows that he can get the lyrics in or the box in. But it was good because, that thing had been bubbling for so long. So we finally had a version of it that we could kind of rally around. And then the next version would have been Aron, the version that Aron and I made when John went to the guitar, the concert. So yeah, but it's not bad. It's not bad. I always cringe a little bit when I hear my vocals, but I know Aron does too.
Let me play a little bit of that cell phone recording that I made while we were all in the studio in April, because I think it's really fun. Obviously you can't get the visual here on the podcast, but you've got Aron on keys, you've got John operating the computer, and you've also got Mark on the stand-up piano over in the corner of the studio. Get in there, Aron, that Nicky Hopkins vibe when you start doing those little piano fills?
Yeah, I mean the fills might not be Nicky Hopkins as much as like the I feel like what Nicky Hopkins did so great with the, studio sessions that he was on is coming up with piano lines that are so indicative of that song, that it just wouldn't be that song without it. The beginning of she moves in rainbows or whatever, like, there's so much that guy did. The little, like, Nashville style licks, that's the Chuck Leavell Rolling Stones that I'm kind of like playing around with. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and also on that clip, you hear Barbara and I kind of going back and forth over like a very small lyric, which is cool just because we do that a lot. We really kind of nitpick the lyrics and, trying to make sure it sings right. It means the right thing. The rhythm really hits the way that we want to hit it. There's so many ways that you could write a song, that you can sing a song. Even little things like "Locked Me Up in Tahoe" versus "They Locked Me Up in Tahoe," right? It means the same thing, but coming in on the L is a little weird as like the first word of a sentence. But if you say "They locked me up," it kind of flows off the tongue a little better. So we do a lot of that. We go back and forth on, if it's an end or a but or a they or whatever, just to we're trying to really make sure we're singing the song we want to sing. It's as singable as it can possibly be, and rhythmically and energetically, it's got what we're looking for it to, make you feel a certain way.
Joey, some astute listeners were able to point out that the Cherokee that the narrator stole might be the same Cherokee that you referred to as having the crack in the windshield that inspired that line in Shocked. A little bit of autobiographical detail in there that's interesting. Obviously, you're not a convicted murderer who's on the run, but you work elements of your life, little details you pull into the story and into the song that give it a little bit more authenticity.
Yeah, well, the cracks in the windshield was actually in a Wrangler. But I do have a Cherokee. But John also has a Cherokee. So we both have Cherokees, so again, when I'm writing that, I'm thinking about the rhyme scheme. And then when something that fits into our lives fits the rhyme scheme well, then it's like a double bonus, right? Like, so I know, it could have been, I'm saying to get away, I stole a and I'm trying to think of what rhymes with that. And then all of a sudden Cherokee is the car that me and John both have. And then it's like, okay, that's obviously the lyric. I don't go into it saying that I'm going to use our car. Right. It's more of that. That was just kind of lucky. But I will say, the booked on a one-man show line, that was, at the time, John was doing the Baba G with the guitar. And I kind of thought of, I kind of in my head thought of that as a one-man show. And that's where that lyric came from. And then I kind of applied it to meaning kind of getting locked up. I don't really know what a one-man show means with relation to like going to jail, but I thought it could mean something like I got, I was doing a robbery by myself or something. Yeah, exactly. But really it came from, but really it was because he was doing a one-man, he was booking Baba G shows, and that's where that line really came from. So again, you're trying to write a good song. Usually you hear a melody, right? Like King and Queen in New Jersey, I heard before Unlock the City, but you're just trying to get something that feels good. And then you're massaging in the lyrics. And when you can pull something from your life or from the band's life into those lyrics to make it even more authentic, that's a great bonus.
Yeah. And I do love the booked on a one-man show and paid my bail with a melody. It places the song firmly in that honored tradition of rock songs that compare being a rock musician to being an outlaw.
I think
all of the kind of the Eagles stuff and the Bob Seger stuff, just where the Bon Jovi, life on the road is like being a cowboy out on the range. And sometimes you're on the right side of the law and sometimes you're on the wrong side of the law. So there's some fun wordplay here that I love about this song, which again is indicative of country music, where there's double entendres and puns and those metaphors that compare music and the cowboy or outlaw lifestyle.
I don't think I'm out of line for saying this. Obviously John isn't a murdering criminal, right? But
he was exonerated on all charges. Let's just put it that way. He was found innocent. But they still don't know where those bodies came from.
When I started writing this song, I was seeing John as the main character of the song. So when I came up with Paid My Bail, the melody, that was one of those lines that I Googled to see if anybody had ever said it before, because that was actually the line when I was like, this is a song. Yep. Now we have a line in here that's completely great and unique. That was what I was picturing John as this character with the guitar and really trying to put myself in it, that. So it was really kind of and that was before I even had the whole convicted felon, with the security guard. I was like, it was almost like I've said Bret Michaels I was picturing this like guitar player, lead singer who's lived a very colorful life for, singing this song and trying, and I was pooling, booked one-man show was John, and paid my bail with a melody. It was kind of me thinking of like John getting himself out of trouble somehow, using the tools that he has at his disposal. And then it evolved from there. But the paid my bail with a melody was definitely a Google that to see if somebody's written it before. And I was pretty excited when nobody had. And that was the line that really made me feel like we had a song.
Well, let's fast forward to August 29th, 2024, Thalia Hall, Chicago. It's been an eventful day. The power goes out. There's no air conditioning. The band, though, is primed and ready after Grand Rapids, and you decide to slot Country Royale into the set list. Talk about the placement, and then I'll play that debut performance and we can listen and we could talk through the jam. But Joey, what was your mindset going in about how you wanted this song to be presented to the community for the first time?
Yeah. So, when Mark and I have been really kind of tour planning. We don't the old school writing the set list the morning or the afternoon of the show is a thing of the past. And we really we've evolved, in addition to our songwriting process. we've been evolving our set list writing process really every tour to now it's at the point where we've got, pretty detailed spreadsheets and Notion pages where we're trying to make sure we're representing different eras of the Disco Biscuits in every show. We're bringing in songs that haven't been played in every show. We're putting a lot of thought into the BPM of the songs and the way they flow and the flow of the show. And sometimes you just put a song that you don't even know is going to get played, but you want it to be on the band's radar, so you put it on the set list. So I actually had Country Royale on Grand Rapids because I didn't know if it would get played, but I really wanted it to get played this run. And so I thought at least the band would play it in Grand Rapids backstage if it was on the set list. And I kind of gave John hey, Country Royale tonight during the day. He said no, but we'll play it backstage and maybe we'll play it on Thursday or Friday. So that's basically what happened. The band played it 2 or 3 times all the way through backstage. I sent you the video, Max. It was maybe that could be a Touchdowns All Day post that video of the backstage version because it's fantastic. I knew then we had a song. And again, we as a group, we had to kind of decide, what do we want this song to be? Do we want it to be a country song? Do we want it to be a country inspired Disco Biscuit song? And I think we all came together and said, we felt it would be more accepted by the fan base and that it would be more authentic to the band if we really leaned into it being a Disco Biscuit song inspired by outlaw country as opposed to a straight country song. And I think that's what we did. And for now, I think it was the right decision. And I knew once they played it so well backstage, I knew it was going to get played the next night. So it was just a matter of finding the right spot for it. I think generally we like to debut new songs in the first set. We have debuted songs in the second set, but I think the first set's better place to do it. The next to last song is a pretty good slot for it, right? This crowd, you've already kind of got the crowd going. You're not hitting them too early with something new. You still have sort of a peak afterwards. It was We Like to Party, right? So the beginning of the set was very sort of rocking, right? I mean, We Like to Party.
Yeah, We Like to Party, Freeze, Inverted Ladies, then setting up Country Royale.
Yeah, so we set this up where it was like, even if it bombed, which we knew it wasn't going to bomb, like the set was already going to be good because you kind of can't fail with We Like to Party, Freeze, and then Ladies.
Yes.
And then, it was also high energy beginning of the set. So you can sort of take a little bit of a risk with whatever this was going to be, which we didn't really know what it was going to be. And then you finish with a big electronic sort of end of We Like to Party. So that's kind of our thinking. You want to put it in a spot where you kind of want to de-risk the situation, right? Like you think it's going to be great, but you don't know. You've never heard it. You don't know what's going to happen. So you want to put it in a spot where if it doesn't go great, it's not going to tank the show. Where you've got the people feeling good, ready for something new. You played some classics plus Freeze, which is a monster. And that was kind of the thought process there. And to go back to something you said before, I loved when Magner started bringing in those changes early. And from my perspective in the crowd, right, because I'm the only real person outside of maybe a handful of people that's heard the song and I'm certainly the only person in the crowd that knows it's coming. So, I mean, so much for me has gone into this moment, all these months of thinking about the song and writing the song and putting the song together and the bickering with Magner for hours in the basement. All of this comes like to this one crescendo moment. And when
it's
I hear
that much bickering, you made such a big deal about our bickering.
Aaron, do you want to apologize while I have you here?
No, don't apologize.
I'm sorry if I have bickered with you when we were trying to get something creative done.
It's part of our process. I love that bickering.
Well, if you could just be more descriptive and less talkative, the sessions would go a lot better if you just let me do what I'm trying to get done.
Yes, I know. I love you, buddy.
Well, let me cue up that debut performance, and we'll start it early in the Ladies. And I did deliberately give a little bit of lead in because I loved how, Aaron, you started signaling for the band and for Joey and the handful of us who were awaiting Country Royale. And it, like I said, it felt like, oh, this is a recognizable 80s new wave right here. I started humming along while I was driving in the car listening to the Nug stream.
Only the Disco Biscuits debut a song with like a lead-in jam like this. You know, it's so beautiful, such a beautiful thing that they have done, and it's very unique to this band.
And one thing that really leaps out at me is how great it is to hear this song with Alan and live drums.
Yeah, it's always great to hear the song with Alan on them. Alan is, a musical, he's an exceptional drummer, a drumming genius, if you will. And, unfortunately, he just lives far away. And, there's a lot of ways to get him involved. But when you hear the song that we've been working on with the real drums and Alan's playing, it's awesome.
What's the calculation that goes into the decision whether to debut a song or to debut the instrumental version? I know that, for example, with In the End We Have Forever, you did an instrumental playthrough before you did a full debut. There was another new song that was debuted as an instrumental in the second set of this show. We'll hold that for a future episode. But why not just test out the instrumental? Why go with the vocals? Is it that you just felt ready, or some other factor?
I mean, Joey, add to this, but it's two-pronged. Number one, it's a lot to prepare for when it's both vocals and instrumental and it's a brand new song. So in our constant desire to, push something out there new into the world so that it could then evolve from there, this felt like a logical first step, but it also made it so that it would familiarize the music with the fans a little bit more. So it kind of seems like it just came out of nowhere from a jam, and then the fans get to internalize those melodies and chord changes, and then when the song comes, it's not such a brand new entity. There's a little bit of familiarity with it, both from band standpoint, who's tried it out on stage instrumentally, and for the fans. Here we go.
To your other question, only one time have we actually had it on the set list. In the End We Have Forever at Electric Forest was actually on the set list to do instrumental. The song you're referring to from the other night, Magner just started doing it. Photograph.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Photograph, back in last spring, the band just started doing it because they had practiced it, and it kind of happens organically.
Okay. up the tempo for the stage version versus the demo?
Typically that has been the path that we've followed in almost all of these songs. Mark, I think, has the most tempo sensitivity in the band, and we kind of let him run with that. And he does have a tendency to put us in a pocket that's a little bit faster than we write the songs, for sure.
We got a jam. So the funny thing about this section was on the demo, this is a very contained section, and this really came from Magner and my session that we kind of wrote this structure of this jam. And I felt it was very important that on the debut we take this for a spin right here and build out a big jam. And Mark and Aron and John were very much, let's just play the song how it's written. We don't want to mess it up or whatever. And then I watched on stage John go up to the talkback mic right before the jam and presumably said something along the lines to Aron, let's give this a go.
Mark played that. Yeah, Mark played that a little fill right after the bada, and Mark played a fill, and John heard that fill as like, we can develop that if we do a jam here.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously it ended up becoming a great jam, and it was huge. So I was really happy that they ultimately went with that decision. And to your question about tempos, right? I mean, the concert is a party. And, the Disco Biscuits dance party is around 132 or above. I mean, sometimes a little below. And that's not, when we're writing the song, we're not necessarily writing a live dance party. We're writing a song and then we want to adapt it for the dance party. We have been mixing up the tempos a lot more in some of the more recent songs.
Yeah, I'd like to get down to the sexy and sultry tempos at, 110 or 90. I have a feeling that's going to be an uphill battle. You want to fight about it, Joey?
Bicker, not fight.
Right.
And I mean, this guitar solo, this was not ever played before, right? Like, this was not written. This is the first time. This is what he thought of when he played it for the first time, which is, the magic of BARBER, right? It sounds like this was written for this song.
Yeah.
And he, even in practice, even when they played it backstage, he never played this. They never even jammed this section out before. This is the first time they even jammed this section out. So this is all just from the mind of BARBER and the fingers of BARBER in real time. And it's perfect. kind of like freeze this section, how we bring it down and freeze and then kind of come up for the final chorus. It's very similar to that.
Yeah.
I think everybody probably expected John would have started singing by now, so then they had to figure out what to do. Magner's nodding his head yes.
But I love how you brought it down to nothing, just to the bass.
We could escape down to Mexico, whoa, and this life would be a memory. You're gonna, Lord gave me a vision. You're gonna bust me out of prison, and we could be free. Unlock the city if you give me the key. We could be free. Unlock the city if you give me the key. We could be free. Unlock the city if you give me the key. We could be free. Unlock the city if you give me the key. Yeah, yeah. We could be free. Unlock the city if you give me the key.
The egregious Disco Biscuit third jam.
Everybody loves the third jam.
Yeah, we'll probably talk about if we even want to keep this chorus, right? Like we've been doing this, by the time we kind of got rid of the final, like by the time had this same situation where there's the jam and then we do the bridge and then we would kind of do the jam again and go into the end chorus. And I think we all decided that it was too much and we cut the end chorus off. I think we did that. I think we're kind of probably
Took us way too long to come to that consensus, though.
Yeah, and I think we
were playing that extra jam for, an entire year.
Yes. I think another spin will probably get a similar treatment. We'll probably figure out because another spin
please.
I feel like has some similar.
Way too many choruses. Yep.
Yeah, and then this is another one, right? Do we really want this part of the song? Maybe if it's the last song of the set, maybe we do it. Maybe if it's in the middle of a set, maybe we don't do it. I think it could also be one of those situations.
Right.
I also think it's important when you have a song like this or like By the Time, for instance, which is, it's a Disco Biscuit song, but it might be a little bit outside the box of that, like, minor, D minor techno or something like that. I like to make sure it's dark. I say dark in and dark out, right? Like you want to contrast that sort of major feel good stuff with the dark techno. So like I wouldn't probably play By the Time before I play, but we wouldn't want to probably put By the Time and Country Royale next to each other, right? They work really well, in and out of a We Like to Party or a Buddha or a Orc Theme or something like that. So you really generate that contrast between the styles of music that the Disco Biscuits can play.
Well, I, for one, am thrilled to have this new addition to the repertoire, especially in time for the band's return to Pine Creek Lodge. Ever since, Joey, you first pitched the idea of a Biscuits country song to me, all I thought was Barber in that cowboy hat on the stage at Pine Creek Lodge. And the timing is absolutely perfect for the band to play a rip-roaring version of Country Royale on that stage with a crowd full of people singing along to those lyrics. So I think that I know that this has been a long journey, Joey, that this is a song that took a little bit longer to come to fruition than a lot of the other ones even were. I mean, come on, look at No Recollection and Another Spin, songs that, you know, in a night they were conceived, demoed, put down, and a few weeks later we're on stage. This is a song that took the better part of 8 months to find its form, but it has really flourished. And I think it's something that we will all be looking forward to throughout the band's fall tour. The final question I wanted to ask is for you, Aron, and that is, when you contemplate a studio version of this song, what in your mind, with kind of unlimited possibilities of being able to bring in different instruments, not only the instruments that you yourselves play, but there is a line in this song, You and Me in This Banjo, it kind of begs for a guest spot. And there are obviously so many instruments and palettes that country music has access to that the Biscuits don't necessarily play on stage. I know that Cloud Chords brought in a steel guitar for Twisted in the Road. There's, different acoustic instruments, I think, that could sound great here. But Aron, do you have any thoughts about how you might like to arrange Country Royale for an album version?
No, I mean, I think it's kind of like playing around and seeing what feels right. I think that there's some licks that haven't been written yet, some like really indicative guitar licks that, riffs, power riffs, country riffs, something that would be indicative of, this song. And it obviously has some of that, but I've always thought that riff will kind of like magically appear one day. I don't know whether that riff will be provided by, a guest star, which is also a fantasy that I have. I don't know who that guest star is, but I mean, come on, the song's called Country Royale. There's, a plethora of amazing guitar players that, might be able to add their voice to this song, their instrumental voice to this song. I don't know whether I would want to hear a banjo just because the song mentions banjo. Maybe. I kind of want to hear like maybe some more guitars, like layered guitars. What happens if there's like a rhythm and a lead guitar player simultaneously? What happens if there's a guest vocalist? I don't know. I feel like that's where the arrangement for studio will probably end up.
Well, I, for one, will be eager to hear it. Joey, any final thoughts?
Well, John does play on the practice version from backstage at the intersection in Grand Rapids. When he says "You and Me in This Banjo," John does play like a very country banjo sort of lick, which he didn't do.
That's great, as long as it's not on banjo.
Yeah. Wait, he didn't do it in the show, but he did it in the practice, and I thought it was really cool. So I would maybe like to see something like that come back. I think that would be really cool.
You and me in this banjo.
Other than that, I'm just, I think I said earlier, there's so much that goes into a song getting played the first time, from, getting the song written and the form down and the lyrics down and all the adjustments, and then getting the band to practice it and feeling good about it and then executing it. And then you get to kind of see the fan reaction, which, has gone anywhere from, some of the earlier ones wasn't the best fan reaction and they've grown to love the songs, or, you know, you kind of have mixed reactions where you have like super positive reactions, which a couple of the songs have gotten. I think overall this has had a really positive reaction, which you're a little nervous about, you know, it's a little different. And so it's been great to see the love, and it feels really good and the song feels really good. And I know that everybody in the band is really excited about it. So thank you to the fans for accepting us trying all these different things and going on this ride with us. And Magner, I really, I loved our moments in the basement together making this song, and it just feels, everything about this song just feels really good.
Yeah, man.
Well, Aron, Joey, thank you so much for taking time out of your holiday to join us here on the podcast. I will see both of you in Colorado in a few days. As for the rest of you, please make sure to head over to discobiscuits.com for all the latest tour dates and information about the band's upcoming fall tour, as well as the Seabisco cruise. Now, I've got to still do the credits, but before that, I'm going to share with you one more country Royale demo courtesy of John, Aron, Joey, and Mark.
communicate. Mass communicate. Mass communicate.
Touchdowns All Day is an Osiris Media production. This episode was written, produced, and edited by me, Max Dawson, and was mixed and mastered by Matt Dwyer. Check us out at www.touchdownsallday.com and use the hashtag touchdownsallday on all social platforms. John is at Barber Shreds, and I'm at FY Maxwell on Instagram and X. You could also get us at touchdownsallday on Instagram and at TDADbaby on X. This and every episode of Touchdowns All Day would not be possible without the contributions of many women and men, including the Disco Biscuits road crew: Ben, Nick, Brian, Rich, Dane, Amin, Herm, and Tara Gracer, our photographer. The band itself: Mark, John, Aaron, and Alan. The management: Ben Baruch and Andrew Kaplan at 1111. The Touchdowns All Day Advisory Committee: Andy Bazzani, Mike Walsh, The Biscuits Internet Project, Russ Tabes, Dave Cook, Scott McClintock, Rich Steele, and Ian Armstrong. The coaches: Joey and Steve. And as always, extra special thanks to Lisa Gutwillig, Deb Brownstein, Angelica Magner, Sandra O'Quinn, Andrea Rivers, and Avery McMahon. On behalf of John Barber and the entire Touchdowns All Day family, this is Max Dawson saying, see you next time.
Osiris.